The morning air felt impossibly still on October 11th, 2025. Like the world was holding its breath before the unthinkable made headlines. The private sanctuary Dianne Keaton had carved out amid Los Angeles's relentless glare was cloaked in silence, save for a single bird's call echoing across her tidy courtyard. Minutes before dawn, a terse call to emergency services shattered that calm. Person down. No drama, no witnesses. Only 3 cold words laden with finality. Within moments, paramedics breached Dianne's iron gate and found her lifeless beneath the soft glow of her reading lamp, pages of an unfinished journal whispering tales of memory and regret. Just hours later, the shocking news crashed through Hollywood's golden gates. Dianne Keaton, the woman who had turned self-deprecating humor into an art form, who had redefined grace on screen, was gone at age 79. Industry insiders and paparazzi alike scrambled to piece together her final days. Did her private battles with skin cancer or past eating disorders hasten this sudden farewell? Friends confirmed her health had quietly declined, but her family guarded the precise cause like a sacred secret. And yet, amid the hush of her passing, one reaction cut through the collective grief with raw, unfiltered emotion. From Al Pacino, word spread that the legendary actor, long entwined with Dianne's life on and off camera, had collapsed into tears upon hearing the news. "I will regret for the rest of my life not marrying Dianne," he confided to a close friend, voice trembling with anguish. When Dianne had once issued him an ultimatum, "Marry me or we break up," Pacino had walked away. That choice had echoed through decades, but never so painfully as in the instant her heart finally stilled. Unable to face the world's curious eyes, he did not attend her funeral. Instead, he retreated into the only memorial that mattered, his own heart, where photos, handwritten notes, and a silver bracelet kept Dianne's spirit alive. This video will take you behind the iron gates, through whispered eulogies, and into the private circle that honored Dianne's life. We'll explore the seaside garden where ancient olive trees bowed in the salty breeze, offering a final stage for laughter and tears. You'll meet the colleagues who arrived with lavender sprigs instead of roses, those simple blooms she once tended in her own backyard. You'll hear the voices of her adopted children, Dexter and Duke, sharing memories of hat collections and golden retriever afternoons that illuminated the actress behind the icon. And yes, you'll witness why Al Pacino's tribute stunned a world unaccustomed to seeing the Godfather in tears. Contrast frames every moment of this story. Here is a woman who built a life on authenticity, yet guarded her last chapter with fierce privacy. Here is an actor known for his fiery intensity, yet reduced to silent pain he could neither disguise nor deny. In one frame, Dianne's laughter rings out from Annie Hall. In the next, her empty chair beneath a weathered olive tree speaks of irrevocable loss. We'll move smoothly from memory to ceremony, from the hush of that early morning to the gentle piano strains that drifted through her funeral. Section by section, you'll feel the weight of unspoken regrets, like Pacino's promise that, if it's destiny, it's never too late, and the crushing realization that sometimes destiny moves on without us. You'll see the contrast between a star's public triumphs and her private vulnerabilities, the gleaming award stages and the shadowed hallways of her Beverly Hills home. You'll understand why Dianne Keaton's final act was not performed under the bright lights, but in the quiet devotion of those who loved her most. As we unfold this tale, expect poignant detours into Dianne's artistic legacy, how she shaped female characters into vessels of wit and strength, how her unconventional hats became symbols of self-possession, how her upbringing in Santa Ana cast a long, wistful brushstroke over her career. We'll pause on her battles, with illness, with industry expectations, with matters of the heart, and witness how each struggle enriched her humanity. Then, in the closing scenes, you'll stand once more beside Al Pacino as he opens Dianne's old notebook, fingers trembling over pages that still carry the warmth of her laughter. By the end, you'll know Dianne Keaton not merely as a Hollywood legend, but as a woman who loved, who laughed, and who chose a path so singular that even in death, her story defies convention. You'll recognize Al Pacino's tears not as a moment of weakness, but as proof of a lifelong bond that transcended scripts and studios. Most importantly, you'll grasp how a single life, lived fully, honestly, fearlessly, can illuminate the hearts of millions, even after the final curtain falls. Step inside Diane's stately mansion on that fateful morning, tracing the echoes of memory in every silent room, and uncover the first whispers of what her passing would leave behind. The front hall still wore the soft shadows of pre-dawn, light filtering through the colored glass of her signature windows, each pane casting fractured rainbows across the decades of her life. On a small mahogany side table sat a stack of meticulously organized scripts. Annie Hall revisions at the bottom, then Something's Got to Give, and on top, an unpublished draft of a project she'd been nurturing in private. Beneath those pages rested a single wide-brimmed hat, one of the dozens she'd collected over a career, its faded ribbon a pale echo of the laughter and confidence she once projected for audiences around the globe. A thin trail of sandalwood incense, still gently smoldering in a ceramic bowl, carried the scent of her favorite ritual, morning reflection. Nearby, an open journal lay face down, pen still uncapped, as if she had paused mid-thought. The final line, half-scrawled across the page, read, "Trust the light, even when the room is dark." In that moment, darkness had claimed her, but the light of her words and spirit remained. Paramedics, having stepped around a pair of discarded reading glasses, noted the serene orderliness of the space. No signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture, only the solemn reminder that a life as curated as Diane's could still slip away without warning. We slipped from that hush into the hushed whispers of the press outside her gate. Reporters huddled under umbrellas of rumor, speculating on skin cancer relapses or the toll of long-ago battles with bulimia. Fans gathered at the perimeter, leaving single white roses, miniature fedora replicas, and scrawled notes. "Thank you for teaching me to laugh at myself," or "You showed me strength." Each tribute reflected the duality of her public persona, a witty icon and a private woman who invited us into her vulnerabilities. The morning news anchors spoke in reverent tones, recounting her Oscar win for Annie Hall as though it had happened yesterday, pausing only to wonder how such a luminous star could dim so suddenly. From the front courtyard, we transitioned to the heart of the home, the living room where Diane had hosted legendary dinner parties with Woody Allen, Francis Ford Coppola, and a rotating cast of Hollywood's elite. Upholstered in soft linen, the couch still bore the imprint of her favorite reading spot, a round indentation at precisely the third cushion from the left. On the coffee table lay a framed photo from the 1978 Oscars, Diane, resplendent in white, accepting her statuette. Behind her, Al Pacino watched with what friends described as adoration mingled with regret. That moment, frozen in silver halide, now carried the weight of unspoken what-ifs that would haunt him for a lifetime. A smooth transition carries us up the grand staircase, each step echoing faintly, as though whispering stories of costume fittings and late-night script readings. On one landing, shelves held dozens of journals, each leather-bound volume labeled in her neat script, 1980, 1985, 1985, 1990, and so on. In the corner, a sturdy oak desk supported photographs of her children, Dexter and Duke, alongside a small brass nameplate, Mama's Desk. Here she had sketched designs for her home renovation book, jotted notes about interior details, and scribbled reminders to call her friends. Now those pages, sealed with sundried petals from her garden, stood as a testament to a woman who balanced fame with the intimacy of daily life. Silence gives way to the faint hum of preparations, crew members moving caskets, florists weaving lavender sprigs into simple bouquets, and family advisors consulting on seating charts. Outside, the ocean breeze carried the scent of salt and eucalyptus, foreshadowing the seaside garden, where the ceremony would unfold. Still inside, sunlight drifted through gauzy curtains, illuminating a single sheet of music on a grand piano, the opening notes of Annie Hall's theme. A staff member gently closed the keyboard cover, mindful that no triumphant chords would echo here today, only memory. That piano would later accompany a gentle piano rendition at the funeral, a nod to the laughter Diane once called the dialogue of my soul. Before we depart the mansion, we pause at Diane's personal library, row upon row of leather-bound classics, Austen, Hemingway, Baldwin, interspersed with biographies of legendary actresses. A catalog card, handwritten in her flowing script, marked one title in particular, a first edition of Edith Wharton's The House of Mirth, which Diane had read while researching roles that demanded both humor and inner turmoil. She saw herself in those pages, a woman navigating the contradictions of society's expectations and her own fiercely independent intellect. Now the library would stand as a shrine to her curiosity, the walls echoing with laughter that could no longer resound. As we step out through the front door for the last time, the mansion's details recede behind us. The polished doorknob signed by guests, the etched glass pane bearing a single daisy motif, and the small stone bench by the window where Diane had cradled cups of chamomile tea. Beyond the gate, those gathered would wait silently for the procession to begin, unaware of the personal artifacts left undisturbed inside. In the quiet aftermath of discovery, her home whispered that Diane Keaton's story was far more than film reels and red carpet appearances. It was the sum of intimate moments, private reflections, and a creative mind that never ceased to explore. Beyond the iron gates, a gentle whisper of salt-laced breeze carried the scent of lavender and eucalyptus through the seaside garden, where Diane Keaton's funeral was about to begin. Ancient olive trees stood as silent sentinels, their gnarled branches swaying in a soft rhythmic ballet. Simple white chairs were arranged in semicircles beneath them, each bearing a small sprig of lavender tied with twine, honoring Diane's preference for unadorned elegance over ostentation. One by one, mourners arrived, stepping softly on the stone path beyond a low row of hedges. Bette Midler, Diane's longtime friend from early laughter-filled days on film, wore a muted teal scarf and carried a single lavender stem. She paused to adjust her glasses as she approached a simple wooden lectern, her expression composed but eyes glistening. Next to her, Carol Bayer Sager, who had penned songs that captured Diane's spirit, clutched a folded note in trembling hands. The first rows filled with Diane's chosen circle, her two adopted children, Dexter and Duke, seated together beneath a canopy of twisting limbs. Dexter, poised in a charcoal blazer, quietly offered a supportive squeeze to Duke's shoulder, their bond woven through years of bedtime stories and Sunday morning pancakes made with laughter and cinnamon. White floral wreaths adorned with sprigs of rosemary, another favorite, nodded gently in the breeze, emblematic of remembrance and fidelity. Soft strains of the Annie Hall theme began to resonate as the ceremony commenced. A petite quartet positioned near the lectern coaxed out melancholy chords on cello and violin, punctuated by a piano's gentle arpeggios. No sweeping opera, just intimate notes dancing across the lawn, conjuring memories of Diane's own description of music as the dialogue of the soul. Guests bowed their heads as if in silent conversation, each person momentarily reunited with moments she had engraved on their hearts. Then came the first eulogy, delivered by Dexter. His voice trembled at first, then steadied as he spoke of his mother's teaching that life imitated art only when it embraced both comedy and tragedy. "She told me every moment was worth a standing ovation," he said, eyes bright with tears. As he recalled how Diane turned mundane chores into playful games, folding laundry with jazz playing in the background, small smiles rippled through the audience amid hushed sniffles. The hush that followed Woody Allen's reflection felt almost sacred. Under ancient branches the congregation shifted, waiting for the final act of remembrance. And then he appeared, moving through the lanes of white chairs with measured steps. Al Pacino, the man whose on-screen intensity had made him a legend, now wore a subdued expression, as if extending reverence to a private altar. He carried no notes, only a simple leather-bound journal in one hand and a silver bracelet clasped loosely in the other. The world seemed to hold its breath as he approached the lectern, the notes of the Annie Hall theme fading into a sustained cello hum. A ripple of anticipation passed through guests who had flown in from every corner of the globe. They knew that when Pacino spoke, it would be both a eulogy and confession, a final appeal for forgiveness and remembrance. He placed the silver bracelet at the base of the microphone, fingering its cool metal as memories flickered in his eyes. His voice began low, almost brittle. "Diane was the only one who ever saw me, really saw me, and held my heart in her laughter. A hush deepened, branches overhead swaying as though leaning in to hear his every word. Fellow mourners glimpsed the vulnerable side of a man accustomed to commanding screens. He struggled to exhale, drawing in a breath heavy with recollection. I remember the day she gave me this bracelet. It was Christmas, 1975. She said, "Keep this close, and never forget to smile when you think you can't." Those words echoed across the gathering, landing on each soul like a benediction. Pacino paused, eyes closing as he let the gravity of his loss settle over every heart present. He spoke next of their early days on set, the whispered conversations between takes, the camaraderie that blossomed into something neither script nor director could contain. His tone wavered as he recounted their walks in New York, hands brushing in the mutual thrill of first love. "She taught me how to laugh at my own shadows," he admitted, voice trembling. "And I, in my folly, refused to bind my life to hers." Co-leaders and crew members exchanged glances, recalling stories passed in hushed backstage corridors. A few guests dabbed at tears, others stared at their shoes, sensing the weight of regret that Pacino carried. There, beneath the dappled sunlight, the actor's confession transformed the ceremony into an intimate therapy, where private sorrow was laid bare before a silent audience. Then Pacino opened the leather-bound journal, its spine creased from years of handling, and read aloud a line he said Diane had written shortly after the premiere of The Godfather Part 2. "We are birds with clipped wings trying to learn flight again." His rich baritone lent gravity to the words, inviting listeners to inhabit Diane's own uncertainty and courage. As he spoke, the breeze stirred the olive leaves, releasing a soft rustle that seemed to applaud her resilience. He closed the journal gently, his fingertips lingering on the cover before he tucked it under his arm. "She lived with more heart than most of us dared to dream," he continued, gaze sweeping across faces visibly moved by his tribute. Cameras that had roamed restlessly earlier now remained still, honoring an unguarded moment rarely witnessed by the public eye. The attendant stepped forward with a small wooden box containing lavender sprigs collected from Diane's California garden that very morning. Pacino selected a single stem, its delicate purple buds catching the light, and laid it atop the silver bracelet. Together, they formed a simple memorial to a bond that had reshaped two lives. He straightened, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeve, and offered a final thought. "I never asked her to stay. I only know now that home was wherever her laughter lived. Farewell, my love. You will forever be the compass of my soul." Finally, as the olive grove emptied, each guest carried away the quiet resonance of Diane Keaton's life. Lavender sprigs were tucked into program booklets, like cherished tokens of memory. Friends exchanged solemn nods, their eyes reflecting gratitude for a farewell defined by simplicity rather than spectacle. Beneath the gnarled branches, the wooden coffin remained until evening, awaiting the family's final decision: will the lavender and rosemary be scattered at sea, or interred with the casket? Whispers of olive leaves and ocean tides drifted through the crowd as they made their way back to the mansion gates. Al Pacino, alone in a study, would open Diane's unpublished script, its pages marked by her careful annotations. In that room, he would relive her laughter, her wisdom, and the bittersweet regret of a love left unfulfilled. As the sun dipped below the horizon, in the days following Diane Keaton's intimate farewell, Hollywood awoke to a wave of collective remembrance and renewed admiration for the icon. Film studios hastened to announce special screenings of Annie Hall and Something's Got to Give, inviting fans to revisit her magnetic performances on the silver screen. Conversations stirred in writers' rooms and directors' offices, where creatives debated new adaptations of her memoir. Then again, envisioning a screenplay that captured her quirky charm and unflinching honesty. At the Academy Museum, curators began assembling a retrospective exhibition devoted entirely to Diane's multifaceted career, from her early Broadway days to the architectural passion showcased in the house that Pinterest built. Behind closed doors, Diane's family convened with estate attorneys to honor her precise wishes, ensuring that every detail, from asset distribution to philanthropic initiatives, aligned with the values she held most dear. The focus of many hearts centered on the Dianne Keaton Foundation, a charitable trust established to support both mental health awareness and cancer survivors, two causes mirroring her private battles and public advocacy. Gifts poured in from fans around the globe, delivered to the Foundation's Pasadena offices, handwritten letters, charcoal sketches of her signature fedora, and heartfelt pledges promising to carry forward her legacy of authenticity. In Beverly Hills, tours of her architectural masterpieces saw surges in interest as design aficionados and casual admirers alike booked private viewings of her Brentwood renovation and the dreamy estate she once called home. Interior designers credited Dianne with transforming set dressing into a philosophy of living spaces that honored both character and comfort, an aesthetic influence that continues to inspire home decor blogs and trending Instagram tags. Meanwhile, theaters in New York and London curated live readings of her unpublished letters and journal entries, inviting actors to breathe life into her most intimate reflections, recorded in ink but pulsing with universal truths. At a modest charity gala, Dexter and Duke took the stage to share anecdotes that went beyond the public persona. A mother who baked cinnamon-dusted pancakes, danced barefoot in kitchen tile, and scribbled poetry by lamplight. Their words painted Dianne as both artist and nurturer, a woman whose identity transcended Hollywood's spotlights, defined instead by the laughter and love she offered in quiet, everyday moments. Cinematographers and costume designers celebrated her enduring influence by launching a scholarship in her name, awarded annually to a young filmmaker and an aspiring wardrobe stylist, who embody Dianne's fearless creativity. Across social media, #Keaton Legacy trended for days, uniting generations in sharing favorite film quotes, behind-the-scenes snapshots, and stories of how Dianne's example emboldened viewers to embrace vulnerability. Critics revisited her roles in films like Manhattan and Baby Boom, noting how her nuanced performances bridged screwball comedy and existential exploration, making her a rare talent capable of weaving laughter with life's profoundest questions. Producers proposed a limited series chronicling Dianne's life, with each episode named for one of her signature hats, an inventive contrast between external costumes and the internal journeys she undertook with courage. Even Al Pacino, still grappling with regret, agreed to executive produce the project, driven by a desire to honor Dianne beyond whispered recollections and private journals, sharing their story with audiences who never had the privilege to know her beyond the screen. Script meetings convened in offices lined with framed film posters, each featuring Dianne in her trademark fedora, while writers debated balancing biographical fidelity with dramatic flourish. Gallery openings in Los Angeles displayed Dianne's personal photo archives, vintage Polaroids of breakfasts with Woody Allen, candid set snaps with Francis Coppola, and family portraits revealing her roles beyond Hollywood's glare. At one opening, Reese Witherspoon paused before a black-and-white image of Dianne laughing under a marquee, wiping away a tear as she whispered, "She showed me how to claim my own voice." The world seemed to turn Dianne's private love letters into public scripture, quoting lines like "Trust the light, even when the room is dark," across banners and memorial installations in film schools and theater lobbies. Award shows adopted somber tributes, projecting Dianne's bows and witty quips alongside images of her poised by Venetian canals in Manhattan, reminders that her legacy spanned continents and generations. Tonight Show hosts and late-night monologues paid homage, recounting Dianne's most memorable moments, her signature laugh, offbeat fashion statements, and fearless authenticity. Even streaming services created a Dianne Keaton Spotlight category, curating her most celebrated films and hidden gems in a single playlist, allowing new audiences to discover her magnetic screen presence. Industry panels debated her incomparable blend of realism and whimsy, attributing her success to an innate understanding of human contradictions, a talent that made her performances feel lived in rather than acted. Beneath it all, Dianne's family trust quietly distributed a portion of her wealth to organizations dedicated to women's shelters and creative arts programs in underfunded communities, reflecting her belief that art could heal and empower. Journalists uncovered that in her later years Dianne insisted on private weekly therapy sessions, a choice that dismantled mental health stigma long before it became mainstream. Excerpts from Then Again soared back to bestseller lists, with readers drawn to passages describing her battle with bulimia and her journey to reclaim body and spirit through self-compassion. Graduate students cited her life story in dissertations on gender, comedy, and authenticity in 20th century cinema, cementing her place in academic as well as popular discourse. At a special screening of Something's Got to Give, the final minutes prompted spontaneous standing ovations, as if audiences recognized Dianne's real-life farewell held the same bittersweet poignancy. Late-night radio shows aired archival interviews, letting listeners hear Dianne's own voice recounting how she prepared for roles and viewed fame as both gift and burden. Across town, workshops taught aspiring actors how to channel Dianne's naturalistic style, emphasizing vulnerability, improvisation, and the power of understated humor. Industry insiders whispered that directors were lining up to cast Dexter and Duke in cameo roles in the Keaton biopic, aligning real legacy with celluloid myth. In archival vaults, technicians digitized unreleased footage of Dianne dancing with her golden retriever, Reggie, moments fans described as more precious than any official featurette. Meanwhile, the Dianne Keaton Foundation announced its first major grant funding a research center dedicated to early detection of basal cell carcinoma, honoring Dianne's lifelong commitment to sun safety. Photographers captured a final image of her estate's olive groves bathed in golden light, a fitting symbol of a life interwoven with nature, creativity, and quiet resilience.